We will now call this January 16th, 2024 Joliet Township High School meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Roll call.
Oh, sorry. Roll call.
She's just testing the moves.
Yeah, I wanted to see if you guys were paying attention.
Ms. Lynn? Here. Mrs. Guerrero-Numera?
Here.
Dr. Huntington? Here. Mr. Coffey?
Here.
Mrs. Stiff?
Yes, here.
Mr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
We may now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. On behalf of the Board of Education, we want to welcome each of you for attending, those that are here in person and those that are viewing live stream. We do not have any public comments, so we'll go right into the order of business. And we'll start with item number 5, consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Second.
Can I ask that the Hopewell bill and the Himes-Patrica bill get pulled for a separate vote on the check request?
Make an amendment to the motion. We'll go ahead and verify it, excluding the stuff that Dr. Huntington wants excluded.
Second that exclusion.
Roll call.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Guerrero-Numera?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mrs. Stiff?
Yes.
And then a motion to approve the rest.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Stiff?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Guerrero-Numera?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
There are no recognition and awards. We'll move into the superintendent reports.
Thank you. We do not have any correspondence or legislative report this month. So we will go right into our presentation. So our first presentation is the Joliet Central High School Campus Link Edition presentation. We have multiple presenters, so I'll let Dr. Hampton introduce our presenters.
Yeah, so we are excited to present to the Board of Education the conceptual drawings for the Joliet Central link. So essentially, we would be linking the current building to the Smith building, replacing where the current bridge is. The Board of Education approved the master facilities plan. So this is part of that master facilities plan. Although this portion will not begin until next summer, we wanted to present the conceptual drawings because we have to start to move forward with building out bid specifications and those types of things. So we have White and Company here, Laura and Greg, and we have David from Gilbane, and they will present the information to the board.
Laura, can you press the button so it turns green? Thank you.
All right, so now you all can hear me. Thank you, Islandis, and good evening and Happy New Year, guys. It's really good to see you this year. So what we wanted to do, just kind of, build from what Islandis said, is we just want to take you on that journey of where the design is for Joliet Central High School Link. We'll give you an overview of how we got to the design, what that looks like, the inspiration, how it relates to the existing buildings, an overview of the floor plans, although they are at a schematic level. So just keep that in mind. When you do see them, nothing is set, and there's still more dialogue that still needs to happen with some of the groups and the end users to kind of define those spaces a little bit better. And we will give you the floor plans, the outline, and then David will wrap it all up with the overview of schedule and the project budget, okay? So we are really excited about this, and we hope really when we get to the end, you guys are just as excited as we are. And the goal is for you guys to say, yes, please proceed. And that's what we really want, so that is really the kind of the focus. So let's kind of get you orientated. And bear with me, we have two controllers, so I might advance when I mean to laser point, but we'll get through this. So Greg and I will kind of talk you through the design component, and then again, David will close it up. So it's advancing by itself. All right, so just to orientate everybody, this is an aerial view of Joliet Central. Over to this left right here is the main academic building through here and up to the top. That building right there is the Smith Building, and this is the TNI. So the space that we're talking about here is kind of in with that red dashed line, okay? And this is part one, and I'll use it as part one for the link because the ultimate goal is to connect all three buildings on the campus, okay? But for logistics and kind of keeping school in session and how we have to do some other renovations to make the second part work, we're just going to focus on this part one. So again, it's that area here. And as Ilandis kind of alluded to and kind of talked to, there's already existing connector link. You guys have lived it. It is truly a corridor that's up at the second level, right? And that was one of the pain points that we kind of talked through. And so that, with this design and the layouts, the intent is to kind of alleviate that. Okay, so with that being demolished, we have to, kind of look at the utilities and the buildings that kind of go through that to connect the two buildings. And also, since we are crossing Herkimer there, I think every utility in the planet is running underneath that street. So we have already started those discussions to kind of discover how to reroute those and keep everything moving while construction is moving forward. Okay, so that's just kind of to orientate you. And then, like I said, that second section will go right in between here, which will come into a subsequent phase. So that once that link is completely connected, you've got all the pathway and you've got the new areas that are in the TNI building, and it kind of works together. We don't want to give you a path that leads to nowhere, right? So with that, I will let Greg take it from here and kind of talk you through that design.
All right, thank you, Laura.
Okay, that's advanced. This is laser.
Got it. Hi, everyone. So we're going to start with just a kind of brief touch on the existing campus and some of the site issues that informed our design thinking. So when you think of the school, probably the image that pops into your mind is that of the old building. It's a well-loved local landmark. It's on the National Register of Historic Places, and it kind of reflects the history of the city and the kind of materiality and the way that it's built. So, but when you really kind of dig a little bit deeper, it's a lot more than one building, and the campus is really a series of buildings and additions that span over the course of a century, and it's more akin to a small college campus than it is a Midwest high school. So, we want to treat it like a campus and with a great deal of thought into what we put there and how it works with the other buildings on the campus. If we look specifically at where our new addition's going, between the main building and the Smith Building, there's about 100 years that separate those two buildings, and that in and of itself kind of presents a number of challenges. The first of which is floor levels. So we're looking at a section across Herkimer, main building on the left, Smith Building on the right, and the existing bridge in the middle. The blue lines represent the finished floor height of the Smith Building, and the red lines represent the finished floor height of the main building. So bottom line is that there is about a 6-foot difference between the two levels on the second floor and a 4-foot difference on the ground floor, which we are going to have to accommodate in our addition with a combination of ramps and stairs. There isn't enough room to do that and make that kind of change in the old building, so we're going to have to provide for it in our addition. And then looking at things from an aesthetic level, the architects of the Smith Building did a good job of kind of finding a stone and windows and trim that match the main building. And when you kind of look at the two things next to one another on campus, it looks like a pretty good match. But when you dig a little bit deeper and you look closer, It's all just a little bit different. Stone's a little bit different color, a little bit different texture. The limestone trim is a different profile, there are different levels, the windows are at different sizes. So if you were to try and connect those two buildings, connect the dots, you know, with something that looks the same, I think the end result would be something that kind of highlights those differences, and you would have a third thing that's a little bit off. So for those reasons, we're proposing a design that uses a very simple, neutral material palette and expression that doesn't try and contest the kind of neighboring buildings and makes maximum use of transparency in its envelope. What does transparency do for us? Well, I think one of the big things is it lets us enclose and showcase the existing facade in a way that strikes a really nice balance between preservation and functionality. You're in the drop-off court, you know, you can still see the old facade inside there, and it's integral to the new identity of the building. The other thing that transparency gives us is it lets us look inside the building, and I mentioned before that we're going to need ramps to connect it, the two buildings. So what we're doing is we're making a feature of a large format ramp that basically connects the two buildings together at both ground and second level. And that way, you know, when class is in session and there are students moving through there, it's bright, it's active, and it you know, it showcases the activity and works with the activity in the building. To cap it all off, we have a simple stepping roof that evokes the stepping of the kind of crenellated top that's on all of the buildings. And then lastly, we have some landscape that sits in front of the glass, and we're doing two things with that. One, we're using it to kind of soften up what is a lot of stone in the drop-off courtyard, but we're also using that as a natural buffer between the glass and the sidewalk for pedestrians. So with that, we're going to talk a little bit more about the interior of the building now, and I'm going to hand it over to Laura.
So this is a great view. You're all aware of it, this is the existing view, correct?
Yep.
So, we want to transform that. All right, so I'll walk you through the floor plan. So if you can see, this is where the existing connector went. Okay, so that was that image that you just saw. So if you can see, we are giving you a flavor of the inside before we get there. So, now we are opening this up on both sides of that existing stair that's there. We do keep that existing stair for circulation purposes, connecting the two buildings, and just helping with navigating between the floors, but also preserving the beautiful work that's on that existing building, and to showcase that in this new link connection, okay? So, access goes through here, and access goes through here. This is a series of ramps and level changes to make up that difference between the two floor plans leading over to the Smith building, okay? With that light that, you know, that Greg was kind of talking through, that is right along through here, that really allows this to be kind of open. You know, you've got that airy feeling, and we all know when you're in the existing building, there are windows, but when you're in those corridors, you don't get that much daylight. And for a moment of just reprieve, of being able to see beyond 20 feet, look outside, it's just a nice break. And natural light is very healthy for occupants. So we've got that. Along this top side over here, you'll see these classrooms. So these are two brand new large classrooms that are within the link. Okay, like I said before, this is early schematic design, so we haven't quite figured out exactly what those classrooms are for. The parameters that we kind of were anticipating is that they are not specialty labs. Okay, so any of those type of general classroom space, so meaning that we're not having built-in casework, we're not having outfitting them for a science lab. So we still need to kind of discuss how those are going to function. Then there's a smaller meeting space that is right in between, a smaller conference room. You can meet with a student one-on-one. You could have small group time. What this link is also going to be offering is the possibility to kind of discuss that you could host a small event right out through here. You know, lock the doors, but to have some sort of an event that's just kind of a nice welcoming space that people can kind of come into. What I want to point out, and this is not 100% figured out, but what I want you to be aware of and understand this, is that you do see that there will be existing renovation right here in this existing building, okay? We do need to kind of step into that to make some of the transitions with, fire area separations, those type of things. But really what you just need to be aware of is that there will be renovation within the existing building to kind of make that happen. On the Smith Building side, there is some renovations that are slated for a later phase that are kind of in there, but we do need to take a look at some initial renovations just to make sure that that connection makes sense, when we kind of enter that building. So that's the first floor to go to,
Okay.
and here's the view.
Yeah, so this is what that looks like from the inside. So main buildings that are back, we're looking at Smith. And I think,
It's jumping.
yeah,
And here's the
let's
pointer.
go ahead. I think probably one of the kind of nicest features of this space is like the abundance of natural daylight and that kind of direct connection that you get to the outdoors when you're inside that space. And that's a quality that's not easily found on campus. As Laura mentioned, right, school planning in the kind of early part of the century, classrooms got the light, corridor was inside, and it just wasn't kind of prioritized. So we think that by kind of providing this kind of experience, this could be something very kind of unique and special within the campus. And compared to, what was there before, which from what we understand was a kind of source of tension just because of how congested it was, I think now it's a place of reprieve, and it's much lighter and brighter. We're using natural materials where we can, like notice the mullions on the window and all the trim, as a way to kind of carry those natural elements indoors. And then the landscaping that was, we were using for screening purposes on the outside now really serves as a nice backdrop for that space. We have some informal seating along the windows to use as kind of a place where students can informally kind of congregate between classes, and potentially as a breakout space if the classroom and whatever the curriculum in there warrants.
So moving to the second floor. We still have same connections that are going through there, on flanking that existing stair. We've opened this. Well, that might be even easier for you guys to look at. So here's the axon of the second floor. So what you'll see here is because we have this open, we really get to use that as a feature. And there's the view. This thing is advancing. So let's go back to the floor plan. So on the second floor, similar to the first floor, two large classrooms that we need to define. There's a breakout space in between those. And then we do show that there's some possibility for either seating or something here that we still have yet to define. But what this is going to allow is that we've kind of have these two connection points here leading into Smith. We're allowing this to be showcased. Part of the scope of work is that we are going to be looking at maybe some surface level restoration and the cleaning of that existing masonry that is here, and then we'll survey probably down towards the south to see if we can clean that up, similar to what we've done on some previous projects. So the two floors are, allow that, and we will define what those classrooms are. And then that's the view.
So here we're turned around from the previous views. Our back is to the Smith Building, and we're looking at the main building. And here you can kind of see the benefits of the plan in action. Not yet. And really the whole idea, kind of main driver behind the planning strategy, is to provide a number of different paths of travel for students between the two buildings so that you can break up those traffic flows as much as possible. And then again, we're providing some informal seating where students can kind of hang out, congregate in a way that doesn't obstruct the path of travel between those two buildings. We're showing some transparency in the classrooms. We think, we still have a lot of development to do on those yet, but we think this could be a good opportunity to showcase prestige curriculum and also take advantage of all that nice daylight that we get inside and bring some of that into the classroom for students. And then lastly, we all know how beautiful the details of the old building can be when they're restored, as we've seen in the student center right now. And so we're proposing as part of this to restore all of the trim, windows, and doors that are kind of encapsulated within our addition. And we think that will make a really nice backdrop, specifically the kind of Gothic window and door pairing, which we're actually framing the floor around and kind of opening it up into a two-story space to highlight those two items. With that, I think that wraps up the design portion, and I will hand it over to David to talk schedule and budget.
Which one do I advance?
Let's push it. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What is this? All right. On this slide, we have two pieces of information. One, our schematic level estimate for the project, and then also we have how the project is broken up into multiple bid phases to achieve the work, similar to what we did with the Student Center. For the budget piece, this is the same format that we showed you when we were doing the master plan budgeting. We have it broken out into the first level of cost is the pure construction, which is about 13.8 million. And then after that, we're carrying escalation, design contingency, since we're so early in the design process, and then construction contingency to carry us through construction, so when we open up walls and we find surprises, that we still have a budget to deal with that kind of stuff. And then below the line, we have the owner's cost, which are professional services, furniture, testing, construction, observation, all of that totals about 22.7 million for a total project cost. The project for the Link Edition is broken up into 4 bid phases that we're looking at. Right now, we're actually bidding part of the utility relocation. That's the main sewer line. We're actually reversing that flow. Right now, the sewer flows south from the north to the south. We're reversing it and flowing to the north and tying into Cass Street as part of that package. And then there's a we have to relocate gas meters, so we're going to reroute the gas line under this first bid phase. Infrastructure is the second bid phase that we need to look at, and that is there's a lot of utilities actually utilizing the existing link as its path to get from your existing building to the Smith building and the T&I building. So before we can take down that existing link and build the new construction, we have to reroute those paths, which could be electrical, fiber optic lines have to be rerouted. So that's part of the infrastructure package. And then as Laura and Greg said, the masonry restoration piece. So we would very similar sequencing as we did with the Student Center. We will come in and take down the stone, restore it. There's a lot of broken stone, so we would rebuild those stone pieces, clean the masonry, and then the last bid phase is the actual Link Edition itself that would be built. So those bid phases are Link utility work is starting now, and then the last bid phase, which is the Link Edition, would be in the fall, going to the December board meeting for construction start for the actual addition in June of '25.
So I'll add, so we've gone full steam ahead since the board approved the master facilities plan, knowing that we need to capture summers for the most part for a lot of this work. And so what you're seeing today is essentially kind of this phase 2 to phase 1. Next board meeting, we actually will have the recommendation for the utility relocation, along with some other things associated with the master plan. So, and there's a lot of moving pieces in between the indoor air quality projects, some things closing up with the athletic fields, right? The parking lot additions and renovations, which is part of phase 1. So there's a lot of different pieces there. I also plan to present to the board the financial plan on how we will fund at least up to the first 4 phases. And I know I've talked to the board previously about utilizing our fund balance for these projects. But when I present the 5-year financial plan, I'll present that information next month.
Are there any
Any
questions
questions?
for us?
No questions, just a big thank you. Having been a former teacher at Central, and this will be the second construction project that turns an old classroom of mine into a hallway, but I think it's definitely worthwhile. This is something that has been a real difficult thing for the students and for staff to deal with. And it just looks awesome. I mean, just on top of the practicality and the functionality of it, just looks great. So, just really excited for it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next presentation is our parent-teacher advisory presentation. Mr. Locke and Mr. Markham, who serve as sort of the co-facilitators of that team. As a reminder, this is an annual committee, and I don't want to steal too much of their thunder, but this is annual through board policy, and there's also action items associated in your packet for first read.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Locke, and I'm joined by Brett Markham, and we were co-leads for the Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee this past fall. Before we get into the actual presentation here on slide 2, I think this was the one, maybe? Oh, this one? Okay.
I'm just going to move this out of your way.
Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. As Brett was pulling the data and we were looking at some of the data, one thing I want to point out to the board, because it was the efforts of our staff, PPS, special services in particular, but along with your support. When Brett pulled the data and we were looking at it, there's been a 12% decrease compared from December of 22 to December of 23 with severe incidents in the district. And there's been a 31% decrease from the December of 21 to December of 23 in severe incidents in the district. On top of that, there's been almost a 23% in outside school suspensions in the district since last year. So December 22 to December 23, about 23% less. And this probably isn't a surprise, but that first year back full-time from COVID, there's been a 52% drop in exclusionary discipline outside of school, so from December 21 to December 22. So the reason I mentioned that, because this was not really brought up during our committee meetings, but I think it's important to say, again, because of the efforts of our staff and because of the board support with things like Catalyst and Rethink and all those types of things that you guys have given us the green light for as far as interventions and supports for our kids, we wanted to say thank you. So as far as the committee information as a whole, we did meet 7 times. We began in September and we concluded in December. The membership, numerous stakeholders were involved. I would say on any given Tuesday night when we met, there was about 15 to 16 of us there present during the time. So although we always want more participation, especially with students, and we're going to look into ways how to get that, there were various amounts of stakeholders with different opinions that were brought to the committee. So the purpose of the committee as a whole, it's for the stakeholders to provide information and recommendations to assist in development of student behavior and policy procedures, just so we hear all voices that are involved. With that being said, with Section 7 of board policy, kind of the main areas that we try to focus on or need to focus on is administrating medicine at school, reciprocal reporting between JTHS and the Joliet Police Department, student behavior, which Mr. Markham will get into a little bit more depth after my slides, and then school safety procedures on buses, okay? So the committee recommendations as a whole, there was nothing regarding reciprocal reporting between the Joliet Police Department and JTHS, so there were no recommendations there. There were also no recommendations on bus safety as a whole. However, there was some recommendations made for 7270, which has to do with the administering of medicines in school, and that was because of the new law presented in January 1st as far as having Narcan in the building, which our district, our first couple institute days, namely January 8th, we did have Will County Health Department that came into the building, talked to the entire staff as a whole, gave some videos on how to administer Narcan, which was very good, and I'm sure we are only going to add to that because of our relationship with Will County, and I can't for the life of me, I can't think of their name, but the new building right down the street here on Midland and Jefferson. Anybody? Help me.
B&A Healthcare.
Thank you. DNA Healthcare. Thank you, whoever said that. So they have really been reaching out, and the health office at both campuses have been working with them. So yeah, we have Narcan. Brett and I talked about it with the help of Mr. Johnson. We are strategically placing Narcan throughout the building with our AEDs, and then we are going to, again, strategically place those, whether it's, depending on what building you are, north end, south end, east end, west end. We've also talked about getting the athletic directors and our trainers the Narcan for after-school events and things of that nature.
So the bulk of our work really focused on, later in your packet, you have two documents that the committee went over. So I'm going to focus on 7190E, which is looks like a table and talks about student behavior and interventions. So the first thing that we updated was the introduction, just to make sure that it removes old language. So it had language about classroom management plans, which is from an old behavior management system that we don't utilize anymore. Some teachers still utilize some aspects of it, but we wanted to take that out just to make the language more up to date. We also adjusted some language in the introduction relating to corporal punishment, just to clarify some things. Some other topics of conversation went more specifically with the infraction types. So there was a lot of conversation about the term disrespect. Which all of these, we call them, when I was in the Loyola cohort a few years ago, they refer to them as the D incident types, right? They all have negative connotations, and they all allow for some people to insert their opinions. The committee felt like disrespect was not favorable to students, so they preferred the term disobedience. So that's the recommendation. We also separated right now hallway classroom behavior is one infraction type. We separated that so that when we're looking at data, we can kind of clarify where incidents are happening. And then there was a significant change to school code as it relates to harassment, intimidation, and bullying. So we spent a lot of time talking about that part of the document as well to make sure that it reflects the new requirements from the law.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you just tell me, how did you guys arrive at disobedience? I think it has the same connotation as disrespect, or maybe worse.
Yeah. Do you remember that conversation, Steve?
I do a little bit. I believe the disrespect, people felt that was subject to people's opinions. What you think is disrespectful might not be what I feel is disrespectful. However, I believe the disobedience part, it's not following rules, or if you look at the definition, laws. So if you're not following rules, you're disobedient, insubordinate, whatever. So those were some of the things that we had talked about, but I think that's a little bit of the backstory.
I'm sorry. It's my personal opinion. I just don't like the word disobedience. I'd rather see insubordinate, but I'm not in the schools. It's whatever you guys go with.
And honestly, the way that Steve and I facilitate this committee, it's very much driven by the committee, right? So we try to make it that way as much as possible. And so this came from a member of the team. I can't remember who even, but.
But to
yeah.
be fair.
Yeah.
Our board president, Mrs. Stiff, also does not appreciate the word disrespect for that reason, and she shared it before, that it's too far open to interpretation.
Right.
So I think it's just a matter, of trying to narrow it down even more. But we have discussed that. So I think she still appreciates it.
I do. Thank you.
And we'll keep working on it. We get to do this every year. We get to have this committee, so.
And as a reminder, these recommendations come to the board for first read. The board has the right to amend and make a decision. So if the board feels like disrespect would be better or insubordination would be better, then we could talk about that. Regardless of what we do, we'll have to do education with kids to let them know. So if if there's any type of discussion like that and would like to make that recommendation, that's in the board's authority and preview. These are recommendations coming to the board.
And this is a board committee, so ultimately, it's up to you all, and we support you in whatever you come up with. With another thing that was, we wanted to make sure we did, is we wanted to clarify ID expectations, so we know this year it's been a focus for our security staff and our staff in the hallways that students are wearing an ID on a lanyard around their neck. That was updated in the handbook, but it wasn't updated in this discipline exhibit, so we wanted to make sure that that was updated. That we also added some clarification on sexual harassment. So what you'll see if you read the track changes version is that a lot of the old language in here was very vague or referred to other places in the handbook or other places in policy. We felt that we wanted everything spelled out in the discipline exhibit so it's all in one place. So we did that. We also added 2 new categories. Currently, anything related to sexual behavior of any type falls under sexual harassment. Sexual harassment technically falls under the HIB policy as well. And so for monitoring and data collection, the committee felt like it would be helpful to add these additional categories for student behavior. We also updated student violence to clarify that it's threat of violence. Right now, when you read the current version, it looks like it could be talking about physical violence, and so that comes with some challenges for coding and just communicating with students. So hopefully that clarifies things. And then also what you'll see in the handbook document, so where it talks about discipline or what the attorney suggested we call student behavior, we added a lot of the interventions that Steve referred to at the beginning that you all have helped us add. We wanted to students and parents to be able to see all of the different things that can result from a discipline infraction. So it's not just punishment anymore, but we wanted it to clearly show that there are interventions that are important for students to take advantage of when something happens at school. So some next steps, just based on the conversations and our work with the team, and this has already been to the district's attorney for review, and in the version, I think the version you have, you can see his recommendations for your consideration. We did send those to the committee. I don't think we heard anything back, right, Steve?
Did not.
So I don't think there was any objections from the group to his recommendations. Hopefully you all will review, amend, approve at the next meeting so we can start to update the handbook and communicate to students what the expectations will be for next year. Another thing that Steve and I, we are also co-facilitators of Strategy 1.5. One of the steps in Strategy 1.5 is to develop a leveled student code of conduct. We did start to have that conversation with this group this year. And as we got into it, it was very nuanced, very, very thoughtful conversation. And so in talking about it, we want the opportunity to get feedback from more individuals, right? So we're going to take the next semester to work with staff and students and parents and get feedback on what a leveled handbook could look like so that we can bring that to this group next year. So instead of this group starting from scratch, which we tried this year, based on timing, we're hoping to bring some input for the committee to consider next year. So those are our recommendations. Any questions for us? Okay.
So again, I thank you to our leads of the committee and everyone that volunteered for the committee. I know it's giving of time. We're always thankful for the participation. So again, as the timeline, first read, they're in the packet this time. If there's any questions that come up or any suggestions, especially potentially with, the discussion with disrespect, disobedience, insubordination, please let me know. We could go back to the committee or the board could just outright recommend an amendment. But the goal is to have this approved, and this is an earlier timeline than we've had in the past because what we're trying to do is get our handbook done prior to the conclusion of the school year. Because as you know, we have rolling registration, and now that we're doing online registration, the sooner we have it done, we can collect those sign-offs and things just work more clean, and then we can plan the needed staff development or student education that's necessary. So that's why we're coming to a little sooner than we have in the past.
Can I just say one more time, I don't know, feels like we need to give like a standing ovation. To say that again, 52% decrease in out-of-school suspensions. That's restorative justice. That is amazing. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for their hard work on that. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Can you share that with us, that data, like because it wasn't included in the slides, I would appreciate you.
Yep, I can send that out.
Thank you.
Thank you again. So on to our next presentation. We have an AVID presentation by Mrs. McDonald and Mr. Oswald.
All right, we're going to work together here. Good evening.
It's the other presentation.
There it is. I don't know if I could speak to the other one. All right, I'm going to go ahead and provide some of the kind of the backdrop foundation for AVID, and then Ms. McDonald will go ahead and go into more of the particulars where JTHS gets involved with AVID. So just as a reminder, AVID just means advancement via individual determination. So it is an acronym. So I'm going to kind of guide you through this. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. So to do our work, we frame this in with strategy 1.4. In particular, when we look at the specific result, and that is to increase the focus on establish the instructional and academic identity of the school. And it's that the preparation for the post-secondary success in a variety of career pathways. So we're looking at that identity, and we feel that AVID will provide a lot of that identity, but there are other layers to this as what 1.4 will develop, but it definitely fits within that framework. The mission of AVID, and again, when you're in an AVID workshop, they really bang the drum with the AVID mission statement. It really is something that, as we're going to see, really connects with our own mission statement. In fact, I'm just going to go right to that because when we look at the top, this is the AVID mission statement, and then for our JTHS mission statement, some things to pay attention to. The AVID is to close the opportunity gap by preparing all students for college and career readiness and success in a global society. A lot of the JTHS mission statement is about, preparing kids for college and career, a global society. It's for all students. So really, we're right there in what AVID can do to help us achieve our goals. I just wanted to kind of frame our conversation about AVID. I really like this. That came out of one of our workshops. It's actually Dr. Jakari Taylor, where he was talking about academic outcomes will not change until instruction changes, and this really fits within our MTSS structure. Instruction dictates student achievement, not poverty, culture, not race, not disability or ability, not parental involvement, or any other factor. It's Tier 1 instruction. So AVID really does a really solid job of providing that framework for increasing instruction across the board for all of our students. Last year at this time, we came to the board, I believe it was Ms. McDonald presented.
January, a year ago.
A year ago today, no, just a year ago this month. So we did provide that outline about what AVID really is. And then we were looking at how we were connecting AVID with our accelerated placement, which occurred this year. And that was at the February board meeting. In terms of this year, coming out of what we've learned and our commitment to AVID so far, we've had 6 AVID advisories in the 9th grade, 3 at each campus. At the freshman level, we had 14 staff certified with AVID. We have admin, we have counselors, we have teachers as part of that. Our district leadership team is dedicated to AVID. We go through that monthly. Our January Institute, we had, I believe, around 60 individuals who participated in what AVID is and how AVID is going to be connected with JTHS. And then we do have some site visits that we've been through this past year, and then we have one coming up pretty soon.
West Chicago.
West Chicago, thank you. And then district and site monthly meetings, which happen here and then at both of our campuses. So what is AVID besides the acronym of itself? As you read through that, I really like to focus in on the second part. It's a system-wide approach. So it is a systemic, process that we're looking at. And I want you to understand that this is not going to be we're going to have this all set up by next year. Avid is something that, we are committed to, and that we're going to see this through, but it's going to take some time to get this at the district level and definitely at the campus level. So there's a lot of layers to what Avid is. The other component to this is that it's research-based. So it's not something that we're just throwing, against the wall and seeing what sticks. These are research-based strategies and applications. The other last part on the core components, that data and certification, that's important because Avid holds us accountable. So we can't just say that we're an Avid school. There's a lot of data that we have to submit each year to make sure that what we're doing is in line with what Avid is about. So it holds us accountable with what we're doing, and then Avid holds us accountable as well. In the U.S., we're looking at Avid schools. There's about 7,500 K through 12, 85,000 educators trained, 2.5 million students impacted annually, and then in 47 states, including the Department of Defense, as well as other areas in Australia and in Canada. So it's not something that we just see in a couple spots, but we do see it throughout the nation, but in particular within Illinois, we do see 35 Avid districts on 155 Avid sites, with most of that occurring at the secondary level. When we look at the next slide here, we do see that the Avid regions that are impacted, that 155 and 35, but what is really important is it really fits our demographic. We're a secondary school, our free and reduced population, our students of color. This is really designed to kind of help our students in this role. So we are seeing it kind of works. It works because it does impact our demo. In 2022, that senior class, again, just fits into that narrative. 70% of students of color, 65% low income, and then 72% of those students took at least one rigorous course, and that's outlined by AP, IB, and then dual credit. And then 93% completed the four-year entrance requirements, and then 85% plan on attending a post-secondary institution. So these are the students who are going through the Avid program at that senior level and where they're going to be going. So why Avid? Again, as you read through that, I think the big takeaway there is that when you go into an Avid school, you know that you're in an Avid school. The teachers are excited, the students are excited, they're all pulling in that direction of college and career readiness. But it really is that last bullet point, which I think is really important. It is about acceleration, not remediation. So when Ms. McDonald talks about Avid within our schools, keep that in mind, that we're accelerating students, not just a remediation plan for them. And then this kind of just shows kind of the same thing. Those kids who are taking, so just broken down by our subgroups, those students who are taking at least one AP or IB or accelerated course in high school, and then those who are in the college entrance requirements, the 4-year, and then lastly, those who submitted FAFSA forms. So it's really all-encompassing. We do see a lot of success, and again, as Ms. McDonald will talk about, this will take some time, so please keep that in mind. And with that,
Thank you. To move forward. Thank you, and thanks for Mr. Oswald for giving that brief introduction. So what I'd like to talk about for the rest of the presentation is where we would like to go within our district, and there's going to be two paths, but they really they need to be one with our goals. So we'll be mentioning that the program, an Avid elective, that is in the board packet as an action item. So an Avid 9 elective and an Avid 10 elective. And also we'll be referencing Tier 1 instruction, so Avid school-wide. Our goal as a district is to move to school-wide. So other school districts, so As We Go has been working on this for 8 years, moving to school-wide. I will give you some just a general idea of what school-wide is, but the entry point for all districts is the Avid elective. So if you look at the visualization of of our school on the left, and then when we embed it with instruction. So the red arrow is our Avid elective. But if, the way we want to approach it and the way we plan to approach it is taking the elective, but also approaching it system-wide. So not only serving a small group of students with our Avid elective, but also focusing on school-wide with embedded core strategies within our daily instruction. So what are those components? So Avid is, has a wonderful system. Just to give context, I've been through now through two trainings. We have another one coming up in March. And part of the most recent training that Mr. Oswald and I completed is that you're with all districts that are in this same phase of implementation. But part of the training is they bring you to a school to see it in action, to talk to people that are actually implementing. So when we, in our visit this past fall, we went to actually an elementary school, and then we went to a high school. So we saw how, and they're called, they're noted, so they're an Avid school. So they're recognized nationwide as an Avid school. And the 4 components for Avid is the 4 core areas: instruction, the systems that we put in place for the district, our leadership, and the culture that we build into our schools. So when you think about culture, when you walk into our campuses and you look around the campuses, and we just saw beautiful additions for Central, and you walk into our classrooms, do the classrooms support and encourage student success? Do our campuses, when you walk into them, encourage and support student success? And when we walked into those campuses at our site visits, you could feel that the students were very focused, the teachers were very focused, and they were proud to be in those classrooms. We saw kindergartners taking 2-column notes and working in pairs and referencing their anchor charts in their classroom, and this was in October. So the teacher had them from August to October in kindergarten, and this is what they're doing already. So we have a lot of potential, and is clearly aligned to that academic profile that we want to build for our students. So when a student graduates, what is that academic profile that they should be walking away with, and as well as our instructional profile? What do we expect from all our teachers when it comes to instruction? So excuse me, the framework, this is what drives everything, and it has the 4 corners. So your instruction, your culture, your systems, and your leadership. The top part is what our students need. So our students, I can't see that far, so I'm going to have to look at my notes. So our students need rigorous academic coursework. So our AP classes, our Project Lead the Way classes, our dual credit classes, that is that academic coursework. They need opportunity knowledge. So our students need to know about the opportunities available to them. So for example, we're working on our job-based opportunities, our internships. That's opportunity knowledge. And then student agency, they should be advocating for themselves. So what we need to do is on the bottom, we need to insist on rigor in all our classes. We need to break down barriers for all our students so they have access to this. We need to align our work, so we have a lot of curriculum work to realign, and we need to advocate for our kids. So this is the framework that they live through. This is everything that that is research-based is based on this framework. So how are we going to do this? Through our leadership team. So Paul and I are your Avid district leadership. We're going through the training. There's 5 levels of training. We've completed 2, and we'll have level 4 done by this summer. We have building leadership. So Matt and Tino are our site coordinators right now. And then we have our classroom teachers right now that have been trained for the advisory, and what we'd like to do for the summer is train them on the elective. So as district directors, so Paul and I, we are, how would you say, the glue that holds the whole system together. Paul has a lot of experience with advanced placement, and we think this is just a right fit with the Avid and the acceleration for becoming the district director along with myself. So just building our capacity at the district level. And then our site teams, so Shad and Takara are components to this. They will be going through training this summer with our team so that they have their own team at each campus. Our site coordinators are Matt and Tino, and then our site team members, we already have our 2 college and career readiness counselors who have been trained. We have our AVID advisory teachers, and then going into the summer, we'd like to train then them on the AVID elective and building capacity in the core areas. So what are our plans for next year? And this is in your board packet as action items. We'd like to offer AVID elective 9 and AVID elective 10. And the rationale, and I printed out also, and we have it at your tables too. You can give context to the just semester 1 data of our current advisories. We want to offer the electives, and this is feedback from our students in these advisories, from our teachers and from the site coordinators, and we had multiple conversations at our district level, and then we brought it to CCC, is that it is an additional opportunity for our students. 25 minutes in an advisory is not enough. The students said this, the teacher said this, or even our site coordinator said this. The AVID elective is that entry point that AVID recommends, and that would be a 55-minute elective course for credit with a focus in on preparing students for college and career readiness with their curriculum. So AVID 9 has a specific curriculum and is very transition focused, and then AVID 10 builds up on those standards. What AVID elective is for our students who have potential but need support paired with that rigor. It supports them within their teachers, but also with their students and their families and our teachers and tutors. AVID elective is not an at-risk system. It is actually, and it's not for our unmotivated students. But AVID elective, really, I like the last one that they said, is that it helps us remove obstacles for students to maximize their potential. And you can see some of that in our data. It's first semester data, so it's minimal, but I think the biggest impact that I saw is their attendance. So if you compare students' academics versus, and then their attendance, it's that building relationship, it's that trust, and it's that connection to this class with their teachers. And we see an increase in attendance rates. Excuse me. Oops. So what is the AVID elective? So we're proposing, the AVID elective is a full year course. It's 1 period of the day. Students will receive credit for it. So this is something that they would have to select to take as a freshman or sophomore. It provides them support in academics, social, emotional, in order to help them support in their most rigorous courses. There is, like I said, a specific curriculum that our teachers will be trained on and they follow, focusing on taking, like our counselors would pop in there and we would schedule field trips, guest speakers, their WICR, which we'll talk about in a second, focusing on writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. See, like I got that already down here. So a sample week, and this is what we followed in our advisory, is 2 days a week. They follow the AVID curriculum. The other 2 days a week, they focus on their core classes and getting support. So if I have a biology test coming up, they would focus in on tutorial groups, focus for that biology test. And then the 5th day is really when our counselor, college and career readiness counselors push in to provide that additional enrichment and preparation. So we've even taken them, where are the college and career readiness? So Yvette and Erica have done visits, but they've even taken them like for a tour of the whole campus and taken them to their college and career center. So a little bit about what WICR is. And I think one of the site visits said they're a WICR school with the support of AVID. So really to get to that system-wide approach
And I just wanted to give you context of where we are. So they give us a, like I said, it's very data-driven. They give us a rubric for all 4 areas: instruction, systems, leadership, and culture. The entry point is Avid elective. The goal is school-wide. So, for example, I can give you an example of, so like Avid electives, students routinely use structures for inquiry such as Socratic seminars and philosophical chairs. That's an elective. To get to school-wide, it's students throughout the school. So you start with the elective, but our goal is to move across the rubric so that if you were to walk into, say, 70%, 80% of all our classrooms, we would expect that from all our teachers. In regards to culture, just to give you context, one that I really liked, that the school promotes a college-going culture that engages in college talk in the Avid electives. To be school-wide, the school sustains a college-going culture that engages in college talk in all courses throughout the school. So that's our goal, is to shift to school-wide through the system of Avid and embedding those Wicker strategies into our instruction. And this just gives you an overview of what those strategies could be. I'll move to our plan. So our plan is to, through 2027, just for basic implementation. I could say that this upcoming summer, we would like to send another team to training, so that way then we have people train on the Avid elective 9 and 10, and we're building capacity with our leadership team and our core freshman teachers. 25, 26, we would send then another team, so we would send grade 10 content teams and continue to train more people. So by the end of 26, 27 school year, we have electives 9 through 12 at all our campuses, and we've built in capacity with our leadership and core areas. The focus, when I say instruction, it's embedded in our classes, and then culture is that when you walk into our campuses, our classes, you see that culture within the buildings. So action items that we request from the board, 2 are related to the electives. So the CCC approved the Avid 9 and 10 electives at the December meeting. We're requesting board approval tonight, and then continued partnership with Avid, so commitment to continuous professional development. And the curriculum cost is an annual fee of about $16,000. That is access to all their curriculum and all their resources and their support. And like we have how would you say, a case manager for our district that works with us on a regular basis, and then sending our staff to professional development. And those costs would be covered through federal grants. Questions for us?
I have 2. I saw somewhere that the Avid elective class would be considered an unweighted class. Is there a reason why it can't be weighted like any other elective?
It could. That conversation didn't come up at CCC, but that could be a consideration. The typical classes that are weighted are,
Well, can I clarify? It would go into a student's GPA. It would be, I think, was that what you were asking?
Yeah. Oh,
It is weighted in the GPA.
Okay.
It's not, so unweighted and weighted in our curriculum guide. Unweighted is not like honors credit or AP. Weighted is honors and AP credit.
Okay.
So it does go into the GPA.
Okay, thank you. And then if a student, so, looking future forward with the amount of additional requirements, foreign language, something along those lines, obviously this takes a space in their elective kind of track. Is this a course then that they would, if they go in freshman year, they have to take it sophomore, junior, and senior year? Is it, let's say I couldn't fit it in ninth grade?
Avid recommends that they
10?
take 4 years. We're not requiring that, but in the future, with strategic planning, we may be bringing to the board in a change in the school day, which would allow students to take additional classes if we shorten the school day. But that's in a couple years down the road, but it won't be required.
Okay.
That's a
you.
good question, because we had that with Project Lead the Way classes too. So if you can't fit it in your schedule, you can't. But the benefit would be great for a student to finish all 4 years.
Dr. Huntington asked my one question. My other question is, I was looking at the data that you have from it, and there's quite a big difference between the central campus and then the west campus. Do we know, like, I know you don't know exactly why, but is there any guesses on why it seems like this bigger jumps between the kids who aren't taking it and the kids who are at Central than there is at West?
I can ask the buildings about that. It could be just, I can't answer that question without asking Matt and Tino.
This is also, and I don't know if it's something we could answer without maybe the help of, maybe this is a program evaluation in the future through Hanover to do some of that data. Because this was, just pulling and sort of really simplified data of this versus that. There might be other variables at play too that we need to look at, where student starting places and things like that. So this might be something we want to put in the queue in the future for outside evaluation through Hanover.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if we could answer that question, so it might be something we want to delve into.
Once we move to the Avid elective, though, we are required as a district to start collecting, like, even just some anecdotal data, so some survey data from our students. So this year, working with Avid, it was a pilot year for us. They were very understanding that we didn't move into the Avid elective, but they supported us this year. So once we move into the elective and move full-blown into their curriculum, there are some data collection requirements that we have to follow as we move to becoming an Avid school. So we'll have more data actually to rely on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to take a sip, I'm going to grab some water
There
and
you
go into my
go.
next presentation.
Because our next presentation, this is our annual presentation. This is really data that we've looked at really since COVID. We were doing STAR data with math pre-COVID. We started to do more work with STAR data post-COVID in reading. And so Diana's going to take us through the annual growth data from STAR.
Thank you. I kept the format similar to our previous years, but I'm going to walk everybody through that, the format, so you, because it's the same on every slide. But just starting with our objectives, when we did add this during strategic planning. So a lot of the data you're going to see is our growth data from our students, and this is considered a standardized assessment. STAR data is nationally normed assessment that is given nationwide. So I will show you some proficiency and as well as some growth data of our students in courses and in grades. Again, and as we approach all of our instruction and what we offer our students, just pointing out that just all the work that we've done, giving our students access and support, being up here now, my 4th year and talking about math and reading and the supports that we put in for our students, the enrichment that we put, we are seeing progress with our data, and it's a lot to celebrate. And there's still continued work to do, but there's a lot of celebrations in this presentation. So I'm going to move up. Yes.
You got to take the microphone with you, or else our friends at home can't
Okay.
hear you.
All right. Ooh. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. All right, so every slide is structured the same, and I'm going to start from left to right. So in the table, it's organized by grade. So this is 9th grade, math, Central Campus, and then I pulled, I have the core math classes for a 9th grader. So algebra instructional, algebra, bilingual algebra, our double block class, and our honors class. Then the second column is how many students, and this doesn't represent how many students are enrolled in these classes. These are the number of students that I had a fall and a winter score Okay, so some students were eliminated because we didn't have 2 data points. Am I really loud? That's okay. So, also on the chart on the bottom left is their benchmark. So for a 9th grader, they should be at 1086 in the fall, and they should be at 1091 in winter. So when we ask the question, how much is reasonable growth between the 2 points, it's a 5 or 6 point. It's not a grand amount. It is nationally normed, so a 6-point jump is normal for a student. So you can see the changes in the scores. So we have our fall, and this is an average score. So the average of our 36 students, their score was a 953, their winter score was a 971. So some of the boxes I coded green, and the reason why they coded green is because they are at grade level. So of all the boxes here, our algebra honor students at Central were at grade level at the fall and winter. That doesn't mean that we don't have students in these groups that are at grade level, but this is the average of the group. Then the last column is our student growth percentile. So STAR calculates this based on our students who have the fall and winter scores. And low growth for a student, which is calculated by STAR, is from 1 to 34%. Typical growth of what they would expect from the students. So to give you context too, these scores are by, I should be at 9th grade. So this is me compared to 9th grade students. Okay? When they calculate their growth percentile, Renaissance calculates it by where you are. So it's not by, it's a 9th grader. I compare myself, I'm a 9th grader, and I had a score of 953, then they calculate your growth. So the growth scores are calculated for each of our students. This is an average of the 36 students in algebra instructional, okay? Sometimes you're gonna see that we grew here, but we were red with our growth. Sometimes you're going to see that we went down, but then our growth percentile went up because of the way they calculate the averages. And I actually printed out a student report if anybody wanted to look at it, but I can't show it on here because it has student information. So this is where we are. So what we're seeing district-wide, and I'll go through all the slides, is that our numbers over the last couple years have gone from 35, 36, 37%. Now we're getting closer to that high end of typical growth. On the right side, you'll see that this is all students in math. So I didn't desegregate it by course or any other thing. It's broken down by whether they're meeting that 40th percentile. If I meet the 40th percentile, then there's a strong probable cause that I will meet my next growth goal. So, and then students that are on watch between 25 and 40, these are students that we target in our learning labs, as well as students in intervention range from 10 to 25. Urgent intervention are typically in our intervention classes. So you can see where the distribution is of all our freshman students at Central in regards to their math scores. Questions on the format of the slide?
Because one of the things, and we talked about this last year, there's a lot of data in here, so Diane's not going to go through every single slide with data. So it's just to understand the, the format of it, and then we want to highlight, some of the successes, and then also the areas for improvement as we go along. And what we're looking for too is, you look at the green versus the orange on the right. In the fall, we had this many students who were at benchmark, and then we grew that number. So those are some of the things that we're looking at when we're looking at this data, because the data is really truly to inform what do we need to prioritize, what do we, in terms of professional development, in terms of support,
potentially in terms of curriculum support. And so I know the feedback we got last year, we're not going to go through each slide, but more so just highlight if there's anything on that particular slide to look at.
Thanks. So I'll move on to Star Math at West Campus. And take note that we have our algebra winter students at grade level. We did see our algebra instructional students not in that typical growth range, and we'll talk about that as talking points at the end. Again, this is this is 10th grade math at Central Campus. We're still seeing the trend with our special ed classroom, geometry instructional. This is 10th grade math at West. You see that both of our geometry fall and winter students are at grade level, but still seeing the trend with our geometry instructional. This is 11th grade Star Math. And a shout out to our advanced algebra bilingual teachers who, tremendous growth with the 23 students in their class. And then this is math at West Campus for 11th grade. You can see our advanced algebra classes are on grade level target from fall to winter, as well as our honors. So a lot of celebrations, especially for our advanced algebra teachers. This is year 2 of their implementation of Carnegie. So year one was a struggle. So it's showing that our students are meeting those grade level benchmarks. So recommendations for 24-25, a lot of it is continue with, and this shows that all the work that we've been doing and continue to do. So we will still continue to have learning labs in algebra, geometry, advanced lab, or advanced algebra with our learning lab teachers. We will continue with our math district team meeting monthly, our MTSS team meetings, our weekly MTSS building team meetings, our teams within the buildings checking in with students on their grade level watch list. We'll continue with learning walks in our core math classrooms. We'll continue using IXL in our classrooms and targeted development, professional development for our math teachers based on feedback and learning walk data. All of that has gotten us to the point where we are today. Some recommendations for this semester and next year is that I've asked Nicole, our curriculum director for math, to establish a special ed or an instructional math team. So with her and the instructional coaches for special ed at both campuses, they've started to meet monthly, and we have representation from all grade levels. They're working with Dr. Brown, who works with us with MTSS, to help put a plan together to recommend then curriculum that is accessible. That's one of the things that we heard from our math teachers at the instructional level, that our math curriculum is not accessible for all of our students. We're looking at progress monitoring on a regular basis in our instructional math classes, and embedding some high leverage practices like we've done in our core math classes.
And then, Diane, I know that you mentioned Dr. Brown, but there's a recommendation for the continued partnership focusing on special education.
That will be coming in
instructional level
February.
In February.
We're finalizing that up right now. But she has a partnership with us right now with MTSS. Any questions on math before I move into reading?
Yeah, I have a question. So a couple things, and I don't expect an answer today, but I'm just curious about, the scores seem very close between the students in like regular algebra or the double block class. So I'm wondering the bang for the buck in a double block class versus the regular one period class. And especially if you're going to start adding Avid in there, like you're going to start losing the ability to have double block math. And so I'm just curious about the data, or what kind of data you're looking at to determine if the double block math class is the right intervention for some students. And then secondly, this is aggregate data, so it's every kid in math. I would love to see the data of the students that are getting those targeted interventions. Like, these are the kids in the math lab class. These are the kids in the double block math class, like just to kind of differentiate the interventions that the students are receiving and seeing if the growth is coming there or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think, Dr. Huntington, pre-Carnegie, we had Hanover do a program evaluation of math with double block and single block. So we could send that out, but then also we could plan for something in the future, and where we could have Hanover do a new program evaluation potentially, like within the next year, now that we've rolled out Carnegie throughout, because that would be a new variable that's different than last time. So that's something, how I think we would go about probably answering that portion of your
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking that, if we have kids that are like, because PSAT data is different from STAR data, right? But you're seeing, I think the STAR data gives you actually more day-to-day what they're capable of doing. So my concern, or my question, I should say, not necessarily concern, is are students just getting placed in double block math because of a PSAT score when we could maybe get more data before placing them in a double block? Maybe they don't need double block based on their performance.
I can add a little to that, but I will, I did a presentation last spring that had the learning labs and the math block, but I wanted the full year because some of the students are still, they don't exit out, so they're continuing on. But we do work with our sender schools, and in May, we will get a file from them of their spring STAR data, and then for Troy, it's their MAP data, and we use that in addition to the PSAT 8, and also teacher recommendation of what placements they should be in. So we do go back, we'll get a list, we actually have a list right now, and then we'll get another list with STAR and MAP data in the spring. And we've actually used, this will be our second year using that data for placement.
Because we have the same concern.
Yeah.
It's limited, right? With a PSAT 8, it's one data point.
Right.
So, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, moving on to reading. Again, the same format. And just to let everybody know, we just started testing students on STAR reading during COVID.
Yeah.
So math has been, I would probably say 10 years. We have a lot of historical data. Reading, we've just started testing. In the past, the reading or the English curriculum was very focused on writing. And they've done some instructional shifts where it is all, so reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And also with us adding pre-AP English 1 this school year. So we'll eventually, we hope to see more of those the shifts, especially in the data on the right, where more students are on target. But again, our students are growing as typical growth for, this is ninth grade reading at Central, and this is ninth grade reading at West. And pointing out too, we have more English language learners at Central, so you're going to see differences in the data between the two campuses. And then this is 10th grade reading at Central. And then 10th grade reading at West. We do have typical lower growth in our instructional English 2 course at West Campus. This is 11th grade reading at Central. 11th grade reading at West. And then 12th grade. 12th grade, we have now 4 core classes. So we have our instructional, our English 4, which is our transitional class. We have our rhetoric class, and then our AP class. Again, all meeting that typical growth. And then West Campus. So recommendations for 24-25 in regards to reading. Look at my thing. So we'll continue with our learning labs for students that are enrolled in English 1 through 4 that don't have literacy. And will be available during all advisory periods. Continue on with our MTSS meetings, our building meetings. They are using IXL ELA for our reading learning labs. We do have a district license for News ELA, and we have, that is a resource for our core classes. We continue to provide targeted professional development, and then new for next year is the rollout of pre-AP English 2 and pre-AP English 2 honors. And then similar to math, development of an English team at the instructional level with the leadership of Mr. Sean Hackney, our curriculum director for English. Again, I'm working with Dr. Brown and really focusing on that English curriculum, progress monitoring, and HLPs. Questions for me? And this is a compilation of just all the work everybody's done. I'm the deliverer. I can pull this data together in my sleep, but it's the work of everyone. And it's really, it shows how much we've grown over the last couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you. The last portion of superintendent reports is the 2023 Winter Credit Recovery Report. It's not a presentation. Happy to, answer any questions that you may have. And I just think it's important to point out that many credits were earned. And this really does aid us in, and continues to aid us in, freshmen on track as well as graduation rate. So are there any questions about that report? Hearing none, then that concludes our superintendent reports.
Thank you, Dr. Guzman. We'll now go into action items. Course additions, Avid Elective 9 and Avid Elective 10. Can we group those together?
Sure.
You guys mind? Okay. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll, questions, concerns? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Guerrero-Numer?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mrs. Stick?
Yes. May I have a motion for creating entrepreneurial opportunities, the CEO program?
So moved.
Second.
I had sorry, yes.
Question, comments?
Is there any prerequisite for this course? Like, do they have to take like a pre-vocational class or anything? It's just a...
There's not, and that's on purpose. It's meant to have open sort of enrollment, and that's what has been done in other schools, and they've seen students that maybe didn't have access to a career, type of course, and they've still done very, very well in the class. And so that's on design. So that's a great question, because we had some of those same questions too. So it does not.
Okay, thank you.
I also just want to say that the board already gave us approval to, move forward in working on this class. And I just want to thank, there's so many community members to thank, but specifically, I want to thank Cornell Lurie. I want to thank Deb Upshaw, and many more. But their leadership in really pushing this forward into the community through presentations and is just been amazing. And we've been able to raise the funding that's a requirement, and that's no small feat in the amount of time that we had. And so at this point, there's been over $45,000 raised, and that still is going. And then Deb Upshaw with the National Hookup of Black Women, being the fiscal sponsor of this, stepping up. Again, they're a great partner, and we've said that before, but just amazing. And then, we have representatives from ABBA, the Chamber, as well as LEDA on the committee. We have community members, and so as we get a little bit farther through, we'll bring them in and introduce them, but really the work has been, outstanding. And Cornell sets meetings up, tells me and asks me where I can be to help, and it's really just been a great partnership, and I look forward to this time next year and at the end of next year celebrating what we've been able to accomplish, because I think this serves as a model-type program that is essential between schools and the business community to really show our students what they can do and empower them. So I'm very excited, but I definitely want to say those thank yous.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stipp?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Burrow O'Meara?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Action item B, bid results, culinary arts renovation, addition, and IAQ work at Joliet West. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Questions, comments?
Yes, we have a recommendation for bid release 2. There is a couple of components to this. The first component consists of the culinary arts renovation at the Central and West Campus. Second part is the replacement of 8 classroom unit ventilators in Building B at the West Campus. The other unit ventilators will be replaced during the renovations of Phase 6, I believe, of the B building. This IAQ project will be part of the American Rescue Plan grant. We're also happy to announce that we did get favorable bid results, and we also are recommending an alternate, and that is to add air conditioning at the South Gym at the West Campus. So that is a recommendation also before the board, so we're happy to make that recommendation.
Any additional questions or comments? Thank you for the air conditioning.
Alanis, with that, the additional additions,
Yes.
where does that put us in comparison to the original estimate?
Oh, yes, so we're just in line for the most part. Now, we look at it in totality in terms of the
Sure.
budget. So we're probably right in line with what we estimated at the beginning, which was about 3 months ago.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mrs. Stipp?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Burrow O'Meara?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Action item C, indoor air quality and culinary equipment purchase. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yes, this recommendation is the purchase of the equipment for the IAQ project. This was actually bid through the state purchasing website, consortium, which is Sourcewell, and we're asking the board to recommend the approval.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mrs. Stipp?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Burrow O'Meara?
Yes.
Action item D, disposal of equipment. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Questions, comments? How are we disposing these automobiles?
Yeah, right.
So we would
Hopefully a
work with,
scrapper.
Chris McGuffey. Normally, it's through a junk company where we dispose these vehicles. Just depend, well, for this case, yeah, the vehicles would be through some type of junk company.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Burrow O'Meara?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mrs. Stipp?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Action item E, donations. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Questions, comments?
Just like to thank Brian from the Will County Emergency Management Agency for donating $4,500 of PPE droplet gowns for our science and arts classrooms to use. Appreciate it.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Burrow O'Meara?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mrs. Stipp?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Action item F, agreement between Joliet Township High School District 204 and Involved, Inc. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
I just want to thank Jamila and her team, as well as our consultants from Involved, Inc. These additional services are needed. We haven't been able to find a full-time social worker for pathways, and so this will aid in that additional support that's needed for students. And we've partnered with this consultant in the past, and so we're excited to partner with them again.
So my question is, are we recommending, is the recommendation for the 2 facilitators or for the 1 facilitator?
For two.
And how long have we had that open social work position?
Since we got the resignation right before school started, so it's been for the entire year so far. We've been very fortunate that we have a retired social worker who's actually been retired for some time, but seems to work with us every single year since retirement. And obviously, he can't work every day, so he's working 3 days a week. And so this will just provide that additional support. And then this position will be posted, through the staffing process next year. The problem with this year was really the timing of the resignation and getting into the school year. So we think we'll be successful going into next year, finding sometimes with late resignations, it's difficult.
So you answered. My next question was, we're taking that posting, well, not taking it down, but modifying it to be a next year posting.
Yes, it's a position within the FTE, so we're not recommending that would go away. It's an open position, it would be posted for next year. And we would repost it as a full-time, yes,
2024,
yes,
25.
yes. And we continue to have it post, like, if we were to have someone, believe me, we get those right away and we call right away. If we are to get a candidate, we would still interview them for the rest of the year. But we really feel like we need this extra support going into the semester since we haven't been able to pull.
Thank you.
Do you use
Especially-
contracts at all, like contract agencies to?
We did not use a contract agency this year to fill the social work position. It's something we want to look at. I think that can be a discussion. We did not.
Just curious, thank you.
Especially at that campus, it's a need.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Guerrero Romero?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Stiff?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Action item G, agreement with Joliet Township High School District 204 and Linden Oaks Behavioral Health. May I have a
So
motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
This is just to continue our training and the accessibility to the Rethink modules that we're currently using for students who we identify as having substance abuse issues.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Guerrero Romero?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mrs. Stiff?
Yes. Action item H, Action Plan 2.1 recommendations. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
Could I request that we separate principal, assistant principals, and director of athletic and activities for approval purposes?
Yeah. We just have to make 2 different motions. Motion to approve each one.
So are you saying like director, assistant principals, then the multilingual services, and then the AD? Like
Yes.
3 votes?
Yes.
Okay.
And don't forget the assistant athletic for the following year too. You would need to, okay, understood.
Just say here,
I'll check 'em.
athletics,
Group
activities.
athletics.
Yep, yeah.
Yeah, so something, a motion for assistant principals, a motion for multilingual services, and a motion for athletics.
motion for all three of those?
I can.
Separate the vote, yeah.
He can just make us.
I can make
Yeah,
I can make the motion to
just make a new
separate
motion
them.
for each one. We'd have to do one at a time. Yeah, you can just amend the first motion for that. So just make an amendment to.
That we're gonna split them into
Yeah,
three.
So I'd like to make an amended motion to split the vote, one for assistant principals, the second vote for director of multilingual services, and the third vote for athletics, both the athletic director and the assistant athletic director into one.
That works.
Second.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
So the first one is for
No, we're,
So we're just
We're
amending the motion.
amending it. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So we're voting on
We're
the.
amending, yes.
Okay. Mrs. Stipp?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Guerrero-Namir?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
So now may I have a motion for the assistant principal?
So moved.
Second.
Question, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Coffey?
No.
Mrs. Stipp?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Guerrero-Namir?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
May I have a motion for the director of multilingual?
So moved.
Second.
Question, comments? Roll call, please.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mrs. Stipp?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Guerrero-Namir?
Yes.
May I have a motion for the athletic director and assistant athletic directors?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Question, comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Guerrero-Namir?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
I just don't agree with the change and putting the evaluations of classroom teachers on the athletic director, so therefore I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mrs. Stipp?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Action item I, personnel reports 1 through 10. May I have a motion?
So
Second.
Question, comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Guerrero-Namir?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mrs. Stipp?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Action item J, student discipline recommendation. May I have a motion?
After receiving and deliberating the information contained in the hearing officer's report, the Board of Education is charged with deciding, 1, whether removing the child from his or her learning environment is in the best interest of the school. Number 2, what the rationale is for the specific duration of the recommended expulsion. Number 3, whether all appropriate and available behavioral and disciplinary interventions were exhausted. And 4, whether the continued presence in school would either A, pose a threat to the safety of other students, staff, or members of the school community, or B, substantially disrupt, impede, or interfere with the operation of the school. The Board of Education must then convene into public session to formally vote on the motion to expel, if expulsion is the consensus arrived at the executive session. I move in accordance to case number C-2-32409, recommend expulsion until January of 2025 and place at Lincoln School.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.
Mrs. Guerrero-Namir?
Yes.
Dr. Huntington?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mrs. Stipp?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Agenda item 9, unfinished business.
There is none.
New business.
Just a reminder, this is first read, so you have 2 exhibits there. If you have any questions, please let me know. And as Mr. Markham and Mr. Locke said, the information has been reviewed by the district attorney, and those edits are in there as well.
Thank you. Item 11, board reports. Are there any?
I just want to say thank you to everyone, including Christine, for all your hard work for Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. And I'm sorry it was canceled. I'm mad at Mother Nature, but I appreciate all the committees, especially those folks from the African American Business Association, and just, there were people all across our community that were ready to just, get to work on Monday. So thank you to everyone that wanted to and worked all year for this day. I'm sorry it did not happen. Also, I'm grateful to be in a district that wants to ensure that all of our staff has first chance at really learning and growing so that they can, garner new positions, including student and teacher evaluations. And last but not least, I just learned in the last few minutes, happy birthday to my brand new nieces who were just born in the last half an hour, Nancy and Lena. Congratulations to my brother. My baby brother.
Thank you. Any other board reports? Announcements or public comment?
I have a couple announcements, if that's okay. I just want to add to and echo about MLK Day and the work that Christine and the team did. Christine equated it to canceling a wedding because they spent all day calling and emailing. And that is just because we had so many partners. And so we're so fortunate to have that much support. And if you haven't, but have the chance, please go on social media and look at all of the individuals that were willing to donate food and donate their time. We have some past alums, some businesses, and just a shout out to them because when we were, looking forward to 800 people being with us, there's a lot of restaurants that were very giving and a lot of people of their time. And so I appreciate, again, the hard work that was done and all the work put into it. And Christine said, well, turn it all over to next year. But they worked from 9 until 6 on that day to cancel everything. And so we'll come back stronger next year, but definitely thanks to that. And then I also just want to thank some additional partners. We had our Institute Day, and we had Will County Health come out with Dr. Burke and did some training for the whole staff. That was very well received. So that was wonderful. We worked with a new partner, Don Parker, on just self-care and people were coming up afterwards and talking to him and thanking him for his messages. We will continue that partnership, and I know he's working with our parapros. But then also our Joliet Fire Department, who came in and did hands-only CPR training as well as Stop the Bleed training. We'll continue with that, but they've been an excellent partner, so we'll continue. And I know there's many, many more that I could share, but we just have wonderful partners that continue to work with us for the benefit of our students. And then lastly, I want to thank all of our families and our community for extending grace with the weather that we've had, because no one really likes e-learning days, especially since COVID. I know sometimes they're okay, but to have 2 in a row, that's been difficult. And a reminder to all of our students tomorrow, yes, we do have school, and please dress appropriately. And so I just want to thank all of our families for extending that